So I just wanted to say about how I started the job, and this is no shade to anyone else. Everyone has been kind to me in this country, everyone has been respectful, everyone has been good to me. They're really kind people in this country, more kind than I've met, honestly, because I remember sometimes where I've been stranded and good citizens have come to my help. So I'm not saying it's an issue with a particular sector of people, just a particular company that I worked for, and I'm going to be stating my experiences from October. So, a brief introduction to myself. Like I've said before, I come from West Africa, so indigenous. I'm a person of color, so I've had my own share of the word, but that's not what we're focusing on. Like I said, a lot of people have been respectful and kind and open-minded to difference, but I would be met with hostility, victimization, professional sabotage, and a lot of evil done to me because of my perceived status, which would later be used against me as visit threats, as forced labor, and a lot of criminal activities like incitement with of assaults against me. For context, this is a support home that I worked at, and basically they manage people with, mental disorders, challenges with their mental health, and so I started this job in October, and what I would be met with would really change the way I see things. I'm 24 years old. I'm a 24 years old young woman. So I haven't really seen a lot of hostility, and I wasn't expecting to meet such kind of hostility in an established care provider setting, i.e. home, a support home. And yeah, so it's really fascinating and might be to some people once I start explaining everything I've seen with my own eyes and how I was treated. So I would start this job late October. Immediately I came, I was met with hostility from a particular individual, which I will not name, but I will name their titles. A team leader of the support home came up to me, speaking frantically of how she thinks I'm going to be stealing her position as team leader, and how people of my color are not accepted here, even though I'm obviously legal and I'm professional and I'm qualified for this job. Why would you tell me that? So I honestly ignored some things because I felt like maybe there was a difference between how she saw me and how she viewed me as a person. So I just really wanted to let my professional stance really speak for me. I'm someone, I believe I'm an excellent worker. I'm excellent at anything I do. When it comes to a job, I give it my all. I respect people. I'm not in problems. I'm not in fights. I'm not provoking anyone. But yet, these things would be directed at me. And most importantly, like visa threats will be made at me for no just cause while working diligently to support others on a job. So from around November, I noticed there was an inconsistency in my shift schedules, and I had to meet the team leader and the manager at the time. The team leader being the person who has already racially profiled me as not being accepted by them in that company. Because in her words, she says people of color are not accepted here. So she would say those things and then later try to convince me on how I should not have a specific pattern for my shifts and how I cannot really choose for myself, but I should go with it. If they want me on days, I should be on days. If they want me on nights, I should be on nights. For context, I started on night shifts for about 2 weeks, and I personally preferred that. And I thought, we know in the UK, if you have a shift, that's what you stay with, unless if you choose to change it. So I believe I was stripped of my human rights when, first of all, my contract was flawed. Why would I be on nights and days? Why would I be called 2 hours, 4 hours, or 5 hours before the shift starts to resume? Why would I be used and exploited this way? Outside the physical assault which I would later face from the residents and staff. This is a very complex video, but I'm just going to be talking about how, from this video, the first video I'm making is about just how I started, reactions, and human rights violations, obviously. So the UK, so according to the Employment Rights Act 1996, it says, an employer cannot fundamentally change your working hours without my agreement unless there's a specific reasonable flexibility clause in my contract. And this is why I believe my contract was flawed. Like I said, I've worked with responsible and respectable companies, and I know from common sense that if I start on nights, I'm on nights. If I start on a fixed time, I'm always at that time. I'm not being called 4 hours before that time, 2 hours before that time. I'm not being exploited over normal hours that I should work. And it was a 12-hour per shift contract. So in a week, it's supposed to be 40 hours minimum. So I was in a bit of a dilemma because I was trying to understand why I was being exploited. My time was being really abused. I had a right to say no, but then again, I will talk about the guilt tripping that would start when I started speaking about how inconsistent my schedule was compared to everyone else's. I believe I was treated differently and my voice wasn't heard and I wasn't respected as a person. So it also says here that the illegal shift patterns would be a violation of the working time regulations of 1998, which states strict limits to prevent exhaustion and safeguarding risks. I'm legally entitled to 12 hours of consecutive rest between shifts. So if I'm put on night shift immediately after a day shift without a gap, they are breaking the law. The law was broken. It's in the law. These are recorded laws. So the time space where I would be called to work and all was really, it wasn't ethical. It was a breach of this law, which is the Working Time Regulations 1998. So rest breaks, I'm entitled to 20-minute break if I work more than 6 hours. I was also denied this. And weekly rest, that I must have uninterrupted rest periods of 24 hours every week and 48 hours every fortnight. This was also broken, but then again, I was also at some time after I stopped, I had to speak up about how irregular my time schedule was. I requested to be put on only nights, which was very difficult because they did not want to give me the required rest breaks I needed. They really, really monitored my schedule. So when I did that, I was put on a 4-day shift on 4 days off. When I started stating the laws and what the law says, that I should have like time of my schedule. I should have power over my schedule. You can't tell me when to put me if I'm not agreeing to it. And yeah, and short notice calls the one that a manager would send an email or call and say that, oh, we need you in for 5 hours early. I'm supposed to start by 9 p.m. Why am I coming by 3 p.m.? Did you pay me extra? At first, I thought I was doing it for like the kindness of my heart, because when I came, they were always cooking up stories that were not real. This team leader, a very evil woman, would come put up stories about fights that had never happened in the home, that 2 people fought, this and that, and I'd be like, this is a very violent situation. So I was guilt tripped to come early as that, because they felt like they were saying things like they couldn't find people, but it's a lie. Everyone has a schedule. There are agency workers that can always fill in gaps. People need jobs, people need hours, but they really wanted me specifically to be there. So according to the Modern Act Slavery 2025, it says slavery, servitude, or forced or compulsory labor applies if I'm being forced to work under the threat of penalty. Like I said, I was being guilt tripped. People would say things like, your contract says. My contract didn't say anything tangible to what they were doing. It didn't say anything relating to that. They were breaking the Health and Safety Work Act in 1974. I stand corrected. And yeah, these were basically illegal labor practices, aided with the comments that would be made at me about my race, my perceived race, and my professional standing, which I believe was compromised by these individuals, the managers and the team leaders and some member of staff. I've also mentioned about some assaults, and I'll be diving deep into that from my next video.